Have you ever thought about the business of your being? The business of your being. So when I think about this, naturally, I got inspired about the book of creation, talking about the place of God calling forth things into existence. I've always been fascinated about the topic or the idea of being a creator, naturally being a very creative person, the idea of being able to put things together and come or imagine ideas in my mind and then should I say, cook up something real, something new, and then it's able to, being able to put things together, and then it turns out to be something really beautiful. That blows my mind. That's something that really inspires me daily. But in the world we're in, you figure that day in, day out, everyday activities has a tendency to make life all about doing this, doing that, some spiraling activities that eventually makes up what we call our lives. But really, is that what living is really all about? If you're someone like me, who is quite inquisitive and a lifelong researcher, if I may say, my mom would say, Tenny is a questionnaire. Proudly so, if you want to say that. All right. But if you have an inquisitive mind like mine, then perhaps the concept of being is not entirely new to you. So when we say being, what comes to mind? All right. When we say being might just be enough, what comes to mind? Would being ever just suffice? At what point in your life would you really be able to say, I have lived or I am living? Have you ever thought about the business of your why? If our life is all about the summation of our being, would we have really lived? So that's like what this particular series is going to be about. So let's go back again to the book of creation. Scripture says that and the earth was without form and void, and God said, let there be this, let there be that, let there be that, and they just sprang up. I tried imagining God as the kind of creator he is, just call things into being, like you start wiring or fashioning them or something. But the most interesting part is the part of light. I'm kind of fascinated by the existence of light. I was sharing with a friend earlier today and said, if you say, okay, once you turn on the light or once you get into a well-lit environment, the beautiful thing is that you're not trying to make light shine. You're not necessarily putting a lot of effort into churning out light, as it were. The natural nature of light is that it emits brightness, it illuminates. We also kind of touched on the fact that, of course, there are different levels to the intensity of the brightness or the illumination of light. But we also touched on things around positioning. There is also the thing about whether you turn it on or not. Then we also talked about how people or entities experiencing light differently. The most fundamental nature of light is that it will illuminate. Look at the sun, for example. There's a particular degree of positioning of these entities, all right, in space or wherever they are, right there. Once there's an alteration in positioning of one against or in relation to the other, things can become cataclysmic, literally. Things can go awry. That is why the same sun that makes you, oh, it's summertime and you're suntanning, you're sunbathing, you're getting your tan, that same, with a little extra exposure, can become a major burn. With a little extra depletion in your ozone layer at a particular time, the impact of that same beautiful, bright sun can be negative. We also talked about the concave, should I say concave and convex of light. I was kind of sharing earlier also that in primary school, was it primary and secondary school, you get taught about the power of focusing light. If you focus light, we experiment with paper and stuff, you'll be shocked that the same light that you're enjoying, by the time you focus it, can really burn through. But if you don't get to focus it, you never experience the potential or the capacity or phenomenon called light. But primarily, have you ever thought about your life as fundamentally enough? Whether you're young or old or something, there are certain things that are like you're wired with. The way you talk, your genetic composition, everything about you is wired to the detail. The mere expression of these details about your life in themselves have some level of value. If you're able to identify them, tap into them, harness them. Now, in relation to God, I live with a consciousness of giving God pleasure with everything about my life. It's not just about my singing. Thankfully, I'm wired to have a beautiful voice. But aside that, worship is the entire lifestyle, is the entire you in relation to someone. Everything about us fundamentally give pleasure to the one who wired us, to the one who made us. Being itself is an act of worship. I guess that's why the psalmist could say, I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Wonderful are your works, and that my soul knows very well. That itself is an act. The fact that you're able to acknowledge that you as an individual, as a Christian, as a masterpiece, are fundamentally adequate, fundamentally a masterpiece, fundamentally enough. Perhaps in another episode, we'll be talking about, what comes with probably what can you experience with or without growth. We might be talking about also then how do you increase capacity practically if being could ever be enough. Do you think being on its own can just be enough? There's this song I found by this lady. What's her name again now? Is it Terika or what's her name? Talks about being might simply be enough. Is it simple things? I'm like, you don't know why I'm laughing. I'm laughing because a friend said, "Oh, Tanya, you're singing that song." If this person knows that, I'm a worshiper and all that, and when you're singing that song, it's like the times I get to see people listen to that. That song, when they play it in movies, is a different context entirely. And I'm like, oh, really? I didn't even know that. I just stumbled across the song and it kind of made sense. And this is the lines I liked were, it's the simple things, it's the energy. You don't need a lesson. You become the blessing given to me. Who teaches a child to say, oh, I want to do this, I want to smile, I want to cool? Those little things itself gives pleasure to the father, the mother, the creator, whoever tells the flower, oh, once at this time, just blow up. Have you seen the sunflower? Whoever tells the sunflower that, oh, at this time in this season, how you need to just spread out and show off your beauty and all of that. But nobody tells them. But in due course, they open up. You didn't see the rose like that initially, and then it opens up, you realize, oh my gosh, so this was the beauty in it all along. We would experience or take a closer look at the concept of being just like that. Look at the flower, look at the stars, look at the sun, look at light, and ask yourself whether your being too might simply be enough. All right. I think that's going to be it on this particular one, being, the business of your being, on this episode. Till I see you again, remember, this is Podcast and News with Tenny. Thank you for sticking around. On to the next.